What if the most powerful response after a breakup is saying nothing at all? Most men believe healing is found in action, endless messages, midnight calls, desperate attempts to explain their worth. But every word, every attempt to fix what's broken only bleeds more power and digs the wound deeper. The truth is brutal and liberating. The loudest sound you can make after a breakup is silence. The Stoics understood this long before us. They taught that the man who controls his tongue controls his destiny. Silence is more than the absence of words. It's the presence of power. It says, without saying, I will not be moved by emotion. I will not hand my strength away. I will not fight for someone who walked away from me. And here's where dark psychology cuts deeper. Silence breeds uncertainty, and uncertainty breeds obsession. While you're focused on growth, on discipline, on becoming more than you were, she is left in the quiet, replaying memories, wondering why the man she thought she understood has vanished without a sound. What once felt predictable is now a mystery, and mystery is magnetic. Silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. It's the disciplined choice to let your absence echo louder than your words ever could. It's the first step to turning heartbreak into strength, pain into discipline, and loss into power. If you're ready to stop reacting and start rising, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment below. I hold the power in silence. Now, let's begin. Number 1. Silence is control. Silence is not passive. Silence is the highest form of control. After a breakup, the average man becomes predictable, ranting on the phone, sending paragraphs of emotion, or drowning in impulsive attempts to fix what's already gone. But the man who stays silent, he does something few men have the discipline to do. He refuses to hand over his power. The Stoics understood this thousands of years ago. They taught that true strength is not in conquering others, but in conquering yourself. When you choose silence, you are proving mastery over the most dangerous enemy you will ever face, your own emotions. You're not denying your pain, you're disciplining it. You're telling the storm inside, I will feel you, but I will not obey you. And this is where dark psychology sharpens the blade. Silence flips the frame. She expected you to chase, to validate her decision to leave, to prove that she still owns a piece of you. But when you give her nothing, no reaction, no explanation, no energy, you deny her that power. Instead, she's left in a vacuum, forced to confront an unsettling truth. The man she thought she controlled has vanished. This is the paradox of silence. By saying nothing, you speak louder than any words ever could. You tell her without a single message that you are not the broken boy she imagined. You are a man who owns his state, his focus, and his frame. And in that quiet, the power dynamic shifts. She may have ended the relationship, but now you are the one who defines the narrative. You are no longer reacting to her world. She is reacting to your absence. And a man who commands that level of control over himself and over the story becomes impossible to ignore. Number 2. The power of restraint. Restraint is the mark of a disciplined man. After a breakup, most men crumble because they cannot sit with their emotions. They react. They send the text, they make the call, they beg for a second chance, and every time they break, they hand over another piece of their power. The Stoics believed that the highest victory was victory over the self. Restraint is that victory in motion. It is the decision to pause when your emotions demand action, to breathe when your pride wants to shout, to hold steady when your mind craves release. When you choose restraint, you are no longer a slave to your feelings. You are their master. From the perspective of dark psychology, restraint is unnerving because it disrupts the pattern she expects. She believed she had your reactions on a leash. Push a button, get a response. But when you stop responding, when you hold the line without flinching, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability is magnetic because the human mind craves patterns. Restraint is not weakness. It is strategy. Every day you choose silence, you communicate strength without saying a word. You show that you are capable of feeling pain without being controlled by it, of sitting in the storm without drowning, and that calm, that refusal to break, is what sets you apart from every other man she has ever known. The power of restraint isn't just about making her notice your absence. It's about making yourself stronger in it. It builds discipline, it builds confidence, and it builds the foundation for the transformation that silence will allow you to create. Number 3. Silence creates scarcity. What is always available is always taken for granted. When you were there at every call, every message, every flicker of attention, your presence became cheap, a resource she assumed would never run out. But the moment you go silent, the moment you withdraw without explanation, everything changes. The Stoics taught that value comes from discipline and rarity. Your attention, your energy, your presence, these are not things to be given away freely because they are finite. When you choose silence, you reclaim that value. You stop handing out pieces of yourself to someone who no longer deserves them, and in doing so, you make your presence rare again. Dark psychology sharpens this point. Scarcity breeds desire. The less she sees you, the less she hears from you, the more valuable you become in her mind. What she once dismissed as constant background noise now feels like a void she can't fill, and that void forces her to confront questions she doesn't want to ask. Why isn't he chasing me? Has he moved on? Did I lose someone irreplaceable? But here's the key. Silence is not a game. It's not manipulation. It's alignment. It's living by the truth that your time and energy are treasures, and that they must be protected. By withdrawing, you are not punishing her, you are elevating yourself. And the higher you rise, the more your absence weighs on her. Silence turns you from an option into a mystery, from something assumed into something sought after. And that shift is where power begins to tilt in your favor. Number 4. Silence forces reflection. Silence doesn't just create distance, it creates space. Space for her to think, space for her to feel the weight of what she walked away from, space for her to question decisions she once made with confidence. The Stoics understood this deeply. When the noise stops, the truth becomes clear. By stepping back into silence, you remove the distractions. You're no longer there to argue, to comfort, to validate, or to explain. And in that quiet, she is left with herself and the choices she made. From the perspective of dark psychology, this is where silence becomes truly potent. The human mind hates a vacuum. When you disappear, she doesn't just notice your absence, she begins to obsess over it. Every unanswered question becomes a loop in her head. Where is he? Why hasn't he reached out? Did he already move on? Did I misjudge his worth? The beauty of silence is that it doesn't beg for attention. It demands it. Without saying a word, you've shifted the frame. She can't distract herself with your reactions because there are none. She can't find reassurance in your presence because you've removed it, and that void forces reflection, whether she wants it or not. But here's the real secret. This reflection isn't just for her, it's for you. In silence, you gain the same clarity. You see the situation without the fog of emotion. You begin to understand your own patterns, your own mistakes, and your own power. And that awareness is the first step to building a version of yourself that no one, not even her, can take for granted again. Number 5. Silence builds mystery. Predictability kills attraction. When she knew your every move, every late-night message, every emotional outburst, every desperate attempt to fix things, you became easy to read, easy to dismiss. But when you go silent, you break that pattern. You become unpredictable, and unpredictability is magnetic. The Stoics taught that a man of principle moves with intention, not reaction. Your silence shows that you've stepped out of the emotional chaos and into deliberate action. You are no longer the man who chases validation. You've become a man with depth, with purpose, with control. Dark psychology magnifies this effect. The human mind craves certainty, and when it's denied, it spirals into curiosity and obsession. She begins to wonder, why hasn't he reached out? Is he over me? Is he with someone else? That uncertainty gnaws at her, because the version of you she thought she knew has vanished, and in his place stands a man she no longer understands. But here's the power of mystery. It's not about playing games or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about evolution. Every day you remain silent. Every day you focus on growth instead of reaction. You widen the gap between who you were and who you're becoming. And that gap creates intrigue. Your silence tells a story without words. You've moved beyond needing her, beyond seeking validation, beyond being predictable. And that story is what makes her wonder, doubt, and eventually regret. Number 6. Silence fuels your transformation. Silence isn't just for her, it's for you. Every ounce of energy you once poured into chasing, explaining, or begging now becomes fuel for something far greater, your transformation. The Stoics believed that hardship is the forge where true strength is made. When you stop wasting your energy trying to control what you cannot control, her feelings, her choices, her actions, you redirect that energy inward. You start hitting the gym, building your discipline, pursuing your purpose, and reclaiming your life piece by piece. From the perspective of dark psychology, this transformation has a ripple effect. She expected you to crumble. She expected you to stay stuck in the version of yourself that was predictable, needy, and safe. But every silent day you grow stronger, more disciplined, and more focused. You rewrite the story in her mind. Suddenly, she's not thinking about the man she left. She's thinking about the man she might never get back. But here's the beauty of this stage. By the time she notices you no longer care, silence has done its work, not just in her mind, but in yours. You've built something more valuable than her regret, a version of yourself that no rejection, no betrayal, and no loss can ever shake again. In that transformation, silence stops being a tactic. It becomes a way of life, a discipline that keeps you focused on what truly matters, becoming the man you were always meant to be. Number 7. Silence removes her control. Control in relationships often comes down to one thing: emotion. The person who can control the other's emotional state holds the power. When she walked away, she assumed that power was hers, that every word, every glance, every action on her part would pull a reaction out of you. But silence breaks that chain. The Stoics taught that the man who governs himself cannot be governed by anyone else. By staying silent, you prove that her choices, her silence, her attention, or lack of it, no longer dictate your actions. You are no longer her puppet, you are your own master. Dark psychology exposes why this is so unsettling. People crave control. When she can no longer read you, when she no longer has the ability to spark a reaction, she feels the loss. The power dynamic flips. You are no longer in orbit around her. You've left her gravitational pull entirely. This isn't about punishing her. It's about reclaiming yourself. Your silence is proof that you've taken back what you handed over so freely: your emotional stability, your focus, your energy. And when you own those things, you become untouchable. The man who reacts can be controlled. The man who remains silent, calm, and grounded. He controls the frame. And in the realm of relationships, that frame is everything. Number 8. Silence makes patience a weapon. Time is the silent ally of the disciplined man. In the early days of silence, it feels heavy, almost unbearable. Every instinct screams at you to break it, to reach out, to relieve the tension. But every day you hold that line, your silence grows sharper, more powerful, more undeniable. The Stoics taught that patience is not passive. It is strength under control, a weapon that only the wise know how to wield. Every moment you resist the urge to react, you're proving to yourself that you are no longer a slave to impulse. You are building the kind of self-respect that no one can hand you and no one can take away. From the lens of dark psychology, patience magnifies absence, At first, she may feel relief. She may even believe she's won. But as the days turn into weeks and the weeks turn into months, something shifts. That silence, once comfortable, begins to gnaw at her. She starts to wonder why you haven't broken, why you haven't reached out, why you seem to have vanished without a sound. Patience flips the script. While you're building, growing, and focusing inward, your silence is working for you. It becomes heavier in her mind, a constant presence in its very absence. And when that realization hits, the balance of power changes forever. Not because you forced it, but because you had the discipline to wait while she had the impulse to act. Silence plus patience isn't just a choice, it's a strategy. One that builds your strength and leaves her with questions she can't answer. Number 9. Silence turns you into the prize. When you stop chasing, something shifts. Silence repositions you, not as the man seeking validation, but as the man who is sought after. What once felt like a loss begins to feel like leverage, because you are no longer the one asking for a seat at her table. You've built your own, and now she's the one wondering if she still has a place at it. The Stoics believed that value is created from within. A man grounded in discipline, focus, and self-respect doesn't need to convince anyone of his worth. He simply lives it. Your silence is proof of that worth. It shows that you are no longer willing to beg for access to someone who walked away. Dark psychology explains why this shift is so powerful. Scarcity and confidence create attraction. When your attention is no longer freely available, when your presence is no longer guaranteed, you become rare. And in a world where most men collapse after rejection, rarity becomes magnetic. But here's the key. Becoming the prize isn't about trying to trigger regret. It's about alignment. It's about building a life, a purpose, and a strength so profound that you no longer need her or anyone else to validate you. And the irony is, when you reach that point, the regret you once wished for often arrives uninvited. Your silence has done what words never could. It reminded her that losing you wasn't a momentary decision. It was a permanent shift. And now you are the prize she can't stop thinking about. Number 10. Silence is mastery. Silence isn't just a tactic. It isn't about games or revenge or waiting for her to crawl back. Silence is mastery over your emotions, over your energy, over your life. The Stoics taught that true power is found in self-command. When you no longer need to explain, justify, or react, you've reached a place few men ever touch. Inner sovereignty. You've broken the chains of neediness and stepped into a life that runs on discipline, purpose, and clarity. From the perspective of dark psychology, this level of detachment is what makes you unforgettable. Not because you're trying to be, but because you've become something rare. A man who cannot be controlled, cannot be baited, and cannot be shaken. That kind of presence creates a gravity all its own, but the greatest reward of silence isn't her regret. It isn't her curiosity or her doubt. It's the transformation that happens within you. It's realizing that the very thing you thought was breaking you was actually building you into someone unmovable, untouchable, and unbothered. This is the end game. A version of you that no heartbreak can destroy, no rejection can weaken, and no absence can define. Silence isn't the absence of noise, it's the presence of power. And once you understand that, you'll never look at heartbreak or yourself the same way again. You didn't beg, you didn't plead, you didn't try to convince anyone of your worth. You simply went silent, and in that silence, you found your strength. What began as discipline became transformation. What began as heartbreak became mastery. This is the Stoic way, choosing self-command over chaos, growth over reaction, and dignity over desperation. Your silence was never weakness. It was a weapon. And by wielding it, you didn't just make her think twice. You became the man you were meant to be. Remember, the goal was never to make her regret losing you. The goal was to reclaim yourself. The regret, if it comes, is just an echo of the power you've built in silence. But the true victory? That's yours alone, because you've become untouchable. If you're ready to master the art of silence and own your power, hit that like button. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment below. I control the frame. Thanks for watching Stoic Blessing.